Everybody has issues. Everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has a few cracks in their foundation. Nobody's perfect because perfection does not exist. All of the above is true, but if the story that you have to tell, if the cracks in your foundation are causing you issues upon issues and also causing you to live a life that is unhappy and lacking of peace, then it's time to stop and think about what you can do to be free of your issues. I was in my early 20s when the cracks in my foundation began to open. And by the time I got to my late 20s, they were open wide, and it was so clear that I had issues. I'm in my 30s now, and looking back, I can see that there were many things in my life that needed to be addressed but hadn't been. And the reason why they hadn't been addressed is because I honestly didn't know that I needed to look into these things. For example, my father rejected me before I was born, and I felt abandoned by my mother in many ways. And this caused me to be exposed to some abusive situations. And on top of that, I had cycles of emotional trauma, and over time, life just took its toll on me. Many of us are living with what I would like to call quality of life limiting issues. These are the things we would rather not live with, the things we'd rather not have as part of our lives, but we feel stuck. And this feeling of being stuck, I like to call chains. And I am passionate about bringing freedom from those chains because I know what it feels like to be stuck. So today I want to talk about the process of becoming unstuck. I want to introduce you to the journey to freedom. I won't address specific issues today. I will do that across different videos. So what I will do in this video is just give an overview of the process. The first step on the journey to freedom is acknowledging the cracks. This is being willing and able to admit that there's an issue and actually wanting change. And this can often be the hardest thing because there are so many mindsets that can stop us addressing the issues in our lives. I was on a website the other day called stresstherapist.net, and I read this really great article about the barriers to dealing with stress. And I thought that they were some great examples of some of the mindsets that stopped me and can stop you dealing with some of the issues in your lives. I want to share 3 of them with you today. So the first of these mindsets is the I'm okay now mindset. And I think we've all been there when something really weird has happened, or there's been a big blowout and we don't understand what took place. And when we get to that place where we can start to address the issue, we pause and think to ourselves, well, maybe it wasn't such a big deal because I feel okay now. And this can also apply to how we let other people treat us. You know, sometimes we have situations in our life where we're treated really unfairly by people, and without really addressing what it is that they did to us, we let them back into our lives and we just say, well, they're back in my life now, it's okay now, and you never really address that issue. So that is one of the mindsets that can stop us dealing with our own issues. So the second one I wanted to share with you is the mindset that says, I know I have an issue, but I don't know how to deal with it, so I'm just going to keep moving. And this is another trap that I have fallen into, where something is so blatantly apparent, it's so clear, it's there, but you just don't know what to do. So what do? You just keep on going, hoping that maybe over time it will disappear itself, and it doesn't. And the last of these mindsets is the I can't admit to being troubled mindset. And I've been there myself. And this is where we know there's an issue, but we don't really have people in our lives that we feel we can trust to share our problems with. And this happened to me during a time where I was part of a church group or a church community who I didn't feel could help me with my problems. So I hid them and I didn't share them. I already felt a bit weird and rejected, and I thought the last thing I want to do is give them evidence. Is to open my own mouth and say, yeah, this is what I do in my spare time. This is my fears. So I buried it, and I just partnered with that mindset that says, I can't admit to being troubled. And these mindsets can seem very logical at the time, because sometimes we might not have somebody to share stuff with. Sometimes we might not know how to approach stuff. But what they cause us to do is just sweep things under the rug. And over time, they trip us up. because there's only so much that you can sweep under the rug. So what I urge you to do is to start to write things down and not ignore them, because maybe you might find that as I address specific topics in future videos, things start to fall into place and make sense. So after an issue is clear to you and you feel ready to deal with it, the next step is exploring the root cause. And this involves asking all the whys. Why do I think like this? Why is life so hard? Why do I have the same struggles over and over and over again? And it's not always immediately clear what the root causes are and how they connect to issues. But with help and prompting, through sessions, through a journey of self-exploration, I was able to find out how a lot of my issues in life were deeply connected into other things. And as we go on this journey, I hope together, and I share different topics across videos, you will be able to see how issues in your life may be deeply rooted in other things. So after you've been able to explore the root cause of an issue, the next part of the process to freedom from that issue can be described as breaking the chains. And breaking the chains is all about separating ourselves from those things that make us feel connected to issues in our lives, and separating ourselves from those things that make us feel like change isn't possible. And part of this process may include forgiveness, and it often does. That may be forgiving yourself, forgiving others, and sometimes even forgiving situations that you were born into. And another part of this process of breaking yourself free or breaking the chains is something that you might not be able to do by yourself. And this is known as inner healing or deliverance. And if these are terms that you are not too familiar with, then please don't worry, because I will explain them in detail across specific topic videos. So another part of breaking the chains is something called a restoration, or something I would describe as restoration. So many things were taken from you, and sometimes there's the feeling that things need to be put back in its place. Now, restoration might not necessarily look like how you think it should look. Like, for example, I thought restoration would involve some kind of justice and punishment for all the people who did me wrong in any way. And I also felt it would include some kind of compensation for all the years of my life I lost due to emotional trauma and years of early responsibility and the stresses that caused to my life. But instead, restoration for me came in the form of peace. I was able to forgive and let go, and I got a new sense of freedom, a desire to live my life in a new way, and I truly believed that my life was going to be different, and that was restoration. So we've talked about acknowledging the cracks, exploring the root cause, and breaking the chains, and the next part of the process is staying free. And realistically speaking, after the chains are broken, you are free, but for how long? And that is why, for me, staying free is the most important part of the process, because that is the part of the process that you often have to work out separate from an inner healing session or a deliverance session or whatever it was that got you through freedom. This is something you need to work out on your own, and it's difficult because it involves renewing the mind. And if you think about it, or well, for myself, for years, and sometimes with some issues, my whole life, I had learnt to think a certain way, respond a certain way, accept certain types of treatment because it was what I was comfortable with. And renewing the mind was such a difficult process, and it was hard to stay free because I felt alone. And getting to that place where I trusted I wasn't alone was a key turning point for me. The reason being is because sometimes even after sessions where I would find freedom from specific issues, when troubles came and issues arose, I would revert back to my old way of doing things and thinking, because those were things that I could trust. And before I knew it, I was back, stuck with the same issues all over again. But when did change come? Change for me came when I was able to trust that I wasn't alone, and I really felt like I had somebody to help me. And for me, that came when I started to trust Jesus. And for some of you, Jesus is the one name that you didn't want to hear. You might be thinking, oh my God, she's religious and all the rest of it. These videos are not about me trying to mass convert people. I'm sharing my story, but I do have to give credit where credit is due, and Jesus really did make the difference. I can say that I've been a Christian my whole life, but so were many of the people who wronged me. So my perception of Christianity, therefore, was so distorted. And even spending time in church, I wanted to feel loved. I needed to feel loved, but I felt judged. I felt like I was always having to be better or do better to be accepted by God, this God who let me down, and by other Christians in the church. But there was a turning point in my relationship with Jesus when I started having honest conversations, because relationships are built on trust. And you cannot have a relationship with somebody you don't trust. And I did not trust Jesus to be there for me because I didn't think he had been. And I will explain, I'll give you an example of how the honest conversations worked. I have a close friend, and whenever we have an issue, if we don't address the issue, when we speak to each other, it's only at surface level. But after the issues have been addressed, we are free to communicate more openly and more clearly. And sometimes I felt like that's how my prayers were. When I would pray to God, it would often be at surface level, because I was holding so many things inside that I was angry about, and things I felt he didn't help me with. And so, although I was praying, there wasn't really a connection because these issues weren't addressed. There came a time where I started having honest conversations with God. I was tired of religion. I needed to be heard. I wanted to be listened to. I didn't trust him, but I wanted to know him. And you know what? Not only did he understand, he was patient with me, and over time he showed me I could trust him. I would write letters, have, angry, outspoken rants. Whatever I was feeling inside, I would get it out, because I needed to be heard. And over time, I felt listened to. And that is when my relationship with Jesus started. So maybe you identify as a Christian, or maybe this isn't something that is of interest to you. But if you would like to invite Jesus in and start to have honest conversations, then there's a short prayer that you can do with me at the end of the video. And I would also like you to consider, after the invitation has been made with the prayer, to start having those honest conversations with Jesus. They can be in any form of expression that you are comfortable with. It could be art. It could be expressive breakdance. I'm joking. But it also could be letters, prayers, whatever you feel comfortable with. If you feel hurt and you feel let down by God, let down by the idea of Jesus, have these honest conversations and give him the chance to get to know you, and give him the chance for you to get to know him, because having that relationship is a very important part of staying free. Thank you so much for watching, and the prayer is about to come up right now. So if you feel ready, the words are about to come up on the screen. So it's, Dear Lord Jesus, there are some things in my life that I don't understand, and I need you to help me. I ask you to forgive me for anything that I've done wrong. I want to know you and need to know that you hear me. Thank you for dying on the cross for me. I invite you into my life. And that was that. And I hope you go on to have some of your own honest conversations. Thank you so very much for watching. Please comment, please feedback, and also you can connect with me through Facebook and Instagram. Just search Libertatem TV. I'm also on Twitter, although I don't tweet very much just yet. But if you start a conversation with me, maybe I'll be prompted to use it more. So have an amazing day, week, and I hope that you're able to watch the next video. Bye.